but that perfectionist ideal, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So I try to move away from that, so I wouldn't be too hard on myself in terms of my art style.
What inspired you? Like, is it a person, a moment? It can be anything. What inspired you?
In all honesty, art's been in my family for, well, for ages. Like, there's always someone in the family who's good at painting, someone's going to be good at baking. Like my mom, she's a cake artist as well. I think as artists, we're quite hard on ourselves. We'll think we're not good enough. We'll compare ourselves with someone who's more popular on, let's say, Instagram or something like that. I think we should definitely be easy on ourselves and focus on like a personal development rather than comparing yourself.
Welcome to the canvas, Ruqaiyya. Tell me about yourself. Tell me, who is Ruqaiyya Reza?
That's a bit of a tough one, but I'll try to break it down as much as I can. Um, I would like to say I'm a perfectionist by nature. I'm working on that as well because it's not a trait I'm particularly proud of, especially when it comes to making art, which I can talk about later, of course. Another one is I'm an introvert. Doing this interview was a little difficult for me, but I went ahead with it. And again, thank you for that opportunity. And I'd like to say I'm methodical as well, like in terms of my art process, in terms of the way I think about like tackling art and tackling the subject as well.
So, Ruqaiyya, tell me, what do you do as a profession?
I'm an interior designer by profession. Ideally, I would have liked to be an artist full time, but this is my, how do I say, this is what keeps me going, this profession.
So you're interior design by profession, but then when I saw your art page, I see a completely different style. So tell us, like how did that style come to be? I mean, you study interior designing, which is more like, structured, which is more, you have to be more organized, more what you call there's like a plan. But however, in your style, I feel, I'm not trying to be offensive, but I feel it's more expressive. Tell us about how did that style come to be?
So before my current style, I would have a very like remember I said I was a perfectionist, right? So I would always try to do like realistic portraits and try to really get each and every single detail captured. But that perfectionist ideal, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So I try to move away from that so I wouldn't be too hard on myself in terms of my art style. Because obviously, like you said, interior design is more methodical, there's a process to it. But with art, I don't want to kind of limit myself that way and just kind of go with the flow. So that's kind of where my current style came in.
I see. So what would you exactly describe that style as? Because I see a lot of I think water painting techniques, a lot of ink, like illustration. Talk to us about the type of styles you experiment with.
So the one style that I'm trying to really focus on is the continuous line drawing style. That's something that's helped me move away from, like I said, being trying to make things look too real and trying to move away from that kind of rigid way of working. I do a lot of line drawings. It's very quick and easy for me to do. Like ink and watercolor is one of my favorite techniques. I'm trying to do some digital art, but I always go back to traditional art. That's like my bread and butter. Actually feeling the paintbrush in your hand, the pencil in your hand, it's very different compared to what I normally feel in digital art. But yeah, I mix and match certain styles, but I'm trying to kind of focus on one style or at least a couple so that it doesn't look the same, if that makes sense.
Okay, and if I could ask you, what is one of your favorite art pieces from your own collection? Like, what would you say? What would be your top, maybe your top number one?
I don't think I've actually thought about that as my number one, my favorite painting. But I think I'll have to go with one of my very first continuous line drawing paintings because it has a very special place in my heart. But that's where I try to branch away from my previous art style and do something completely different. So that definitely has a special place for me. I guess I'd call that the number one.
Nice. And who inspired you to actually get into art? Because I feel like some people when they were young they used to like maybe just do it as for fun, and they thought, okay, maybe I'd go something with this as a career in the future. But then some of them stop and they go on a different career path. However, I think art has followed you. I mean, you are an interior designer now, but what inspired you to, I think, pursue, like what inspired you to pursue this as a career as well as continue this on the side with experimenting with different mediums and different styles? What inspired you? Like, is it a person, a moment? It can be anything. What inspired you?
In all honesty, art's been in my family for, well, for ages. Like, there's always someone in the family who's good at painting, someone's going to be good at baking. Like my mom, she's a cake artist as well. Someone will be good at photography, literature. So that's always been in the family, and we've always been encouraged to pursue that passion. Like we've never been, how to say, like talked down, like looked down upon or anything like that. Like an example in my case would be when I was really young, I draw all over the walls, and I wasn't really like chastised for it. Like it would be encouraged. So I guess the child artist in me hasn't really died, if that makes sense.
Of course, I think it's a very important factor if your parents actually or your loved ones motivate you in continuing and trying to improve yourself in a passion such as art. So I respect that. So Ruqaiyya, what's the main difference between working as a interior designer and also doing your private illustrations or and focusing on your personal work? Like, what's the main difference?
Like it's kind of like I wouldn't call it a night and day difference, but there's a big difference between the professional side of interior design and the work I do as an artist on the side. So when it comes to the interior design aspect, a lot of the times we're driven by a client brief, we're driven by things like budget, and all those things kind of dictate how we work and how we produce the stuff. um, I'll still have some creative input, but it's limited based on the brief and all those other aspects. When it comes to like to my personal work, and even if it's for commissions or things like that, I don't have to stick to a certain brief. I've got full creative freedom to do what I want, or work and manipulate my style to suit that technique or like whatever the client has asked. Um, but yeah, there's definitely more freedom, obviously, because it's my personal thing, and that's the business side where interior design is. But yeah, that's the biggest difference, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So now let's say, like, what do you need? Like, let's say you're working on your illustrations, for example, the ones which I saw on your page. What is the most important thing you need? It could be like, let's say, peace of mind or music. What do you need when you're producing those type of illustrations and all?
For me, it's definitely good music, like a good playlist that helps me go with the flow. And the number one thing, I think, for me anyway, is no interruptions. Because once I get into the flow of creating a piece, I do not want to be interrupted, whether it's for food or water or someone's like asking me a question. I'll put my phone aside sometimes as well. I'll just ignore it and I'll just continue working on that piece. So that's my main thing for that.
So are you someone who would be more of a night owl, as some would say, like working late nights, or just any time of the day you would work as long as you have that peace of mind and that time?
For me, I'm definitely the latter. As long as I have that time and peace of mind, I'll definitely, like if I'm in the zone, especially because it depends on if I'm in the zone to create or if I'm in the mood for something else. It is more peaceful at night. I definitely agree. But sometimes that creativity it just comes in at different moments for me. It's not really limited to a certain time, let's say.
So now tell me, what's one of the worst things you heard as an artist? And I'm pretty sure you've been doing this for a long while, any art related job. So what's one of the worst things you heard as an artist?
I think honestly, I've heard a lot of weird things come out from people who aren't artists and who don't understand artists. But I think the worst one is when someone told me, why should I pay that much if I can find an image on Google and frame it? So yeah, that was not the best.
So now let's just say, like, did the COVID situation in any way affect you in terms of, let's say, if you are doing for personal commissions, not regarding your full-time job, let's say in terms of personal commissions and your personal work, has it affected it in any way?
I do feel a bit of an effect because of the COVID situation. Um, Compared to pre-COVID, the commissions aren't as much as I'd get them, and obviously a lot of people, they're not willing to spend a certain amount of money on art. They have other priorities, which I totally get. So it has changed it for me, but I'm still obviously pushing ahead, doing my own personal work whenever I can, besides my actual job.
So, Ruqaiyya, now tell me, what are artists missing nowadays? Like, it doesn't have to be generally a artist who's a teenager or in their early 20s or mid 20s. It could be an artist of any age or gender. So, what do you think they're missing nowadays?
I think, like, personally, when I see artists nowadays, whether it's young or whether they're old, there's a lot of like in terms of marketing yourself, selling yourself as an artist as well. That's something that, like, even myself included, we're not very good at, I would say. So like that's how to explain. So that's something I think would be a good thing to have for future upcoming artists or even artists like um, seasoned artists. So a way to kind of market yourself, especially in this day of social media, which is booming right now. Also, I think, I mean, this might just be me, but I think there's a personal touch that's sometimes missing in some art, like either artist accounts or art pieces. Which again, I will also admit to feeling. Like, let's say you have your own account that's just for art, but then the only thing you do is post art. There's no behind the scenes or showing that human side of you. I think that's really important to do, and it's something I'm also learning to do as well. Like, it could just be like showing your audience like a day in your life, basically. I think that's something that's missing as well.
So technically, what you're trying to tell me is, like, they should also show more of, they should focus more on the marketing side, because otherwise, how will your own audience know more about you? Because a lot of, I feel artists, where they're struggling is they have the talent, they have the content, but the world doesn't know they exist.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that as well. Personally, I feel that.
And you're also telling me that they should show more behind the scenes so that people can actually know. Like, I think people are actually even interested in seeing the behind the scenes process because they also want to get motivated.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think behind the scenes, like those processes, showing people what tools you use, even if you tagged, like, let's say, the paintbrush company or the paint company that you use, it'll generate more audience and more feedback, and someone might ask you, like, oh, what do you think of this paint? Or, what's your review on this type of paper, for example. So I think that's a very crucial thing as well.
We're going to come to the end of this show. So, a few words of encouragement from your side to the audience or for those watching right now.
I think as artists, we're quite hard on ourselves. We'll think we're not good enough. We'll compare ourselves with someone who's more popular on, let's say, Instagram or something like that. I think we should definitely be easy on ourselves and focus on like a personal development rather than comparing yourself with how many likes they have, how many followers. I think it's very easy to lose yourself in that cycle, and everyone's guilty of it. I'm not saying I haven't felt that, but I think everyone feels that at some point in their time. And also, like, you should never stop creating, even if you're in an art block or anything like that. You can, like, a simple doodle, it can be a tiny scribble or anything. Like, even when I'm at my workplace, if I'm in a meeting, I'll just randomly doodle stuff at the back of my book just to keep that momentum going, just to keep the thought process going. So I think, like never stopping is good in a way. Like, obviously don't burn out. It's just small doodles here and there, but I think that's important as well.
So thank you, Ruqaiyya, for taking the time to talk with me from Dubai, and It was really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.